Do you want a smaller and slimmer version of the current Seiko Alpinist with a high-end and high-beat movement? Then the Seiko Red Alpinist is perhaps the perfect watch for you. In today's video I'm going to take a look at the not so well known Seiko SCVF005. With all the features that made the SCVF017 so good, but with a slimmer case and better movement. The Red Alpinist is perhaps one of the most sought after models in the Seiko Alpinist lineup. This watch, the Seiko SCVF005, was produced for a short period of time in the mid-1990s and has a high beat movement derived from the 52 King Seiko. It has the distinct red text on the dial that gave it the nickname, the Red Alpinist. In this video I will tell you about the history of the Alpinist, compare it to the current Seiko Alpinist and the SCVF017, and give you my opinion on the movement, the case, the dial and the bracelet of this watch. So without further ado, let's get started. The Seiko Alpinist is a line of sport watches that was originally made for Japanese mountain climbers in the 1960s. The first Alpinist was the Laurel Alpinist, which was launched in 1959 and was Seiko's first dedicated sport watch. It had luminous hands, a waterproof caseback and a domed acrylic glass that made it tough enough to withstand dust and dirt. It also had a manual movement with the DiaShock shock protection and 17 jewels. And it was very reliable and accurate for its time. The Laurel Alpinist looked more like a dress watch than a sports watch, but it was very popular among the Japanese mountaineers, who was called Yamaotoko or mountain men. In 1963, Seiko introduced a more rugged version of the Alpinist, called the Alpinist Champion. It had a light-colored center dial with a darker surrounding and square-shaped applied hour markers. It also had a larger case size and a more sporty look than the Laurel Alpinist. The Champion was also powered by a manual movement, but with 19 jewels and a higher frequency of 18,000 beats per hour. The Champion was the last Alpinist model until the 1990s, when Seiko revived the Alpinist line. In 1995, Seiko launched a series of Alpinist models known as the SCVF series or the Red Alpinist series. These models had the distinctive features and design elements of the Alpinist line that we know today, such as the rotating compass bezel, the cathedral hands and the dial collars. The most rare and collectible models of this series was the black dial SCVF005, which we have right here, and the SCVF009 with the green dial and gold accents. There was also a white dial version with the reference number SCVF007. All the models in this line had a high beat movement, the automatic caliber 4S15, which had a frequency of 28,800 beats per hour. This movement is considered a high-end movement compared to the 6R15 featured in the SCVF017. It is actually based on the King Seiko 52 movements from the 1970s, which are famous for their accuracy. The Red Alpinist line was produced only for a few years and is becoming increasingly hard to find nowadays. And it is considered by many Seiko fans as the holy grail of the Alpinist lineup. The Seiko Red Alpinist is very similar to the famous SCVF017 and the current Alpinist. The biggest difference, except for the higher end movement, is the case size. The Red Alpinist is 37mm in diameter and only 11mm thick, while still having 200 meters of water resistance. The now discontinued SCVF017 and the current Alpinist are closer to 40mm in diameter and around 13mm thick. They also have the 6R15 and 6R35 movements, which are both based on the lower end 7S26. Both good and reliable movements, but the 4S15 is a class of its own, with a slimmer profile that is more comparable to the ETA 2892. In my opinion, the Seiko Red Alpinist is perhaps the most unique and attractive model of the Alpinist line, together with its green dial sibling, the SCVF009. It also has a vintage and rare appeal that makes it very desirable and collectible. The current Seiko Alpinist and the SCVF017 are both great watches, but they are more common and have a few downgrades as mentioned compared to the Red Alpinist. Except being smaller and slimmer compared to the newer models, the case and dial looks very similar, except for the color of the dial compared to the SCVF017 and the shape of the indices. Both have polished sides, brushed lugs and a signed screw-down crown, and of course the inner rotating bezel with the extra crown at 4 o'clock and the cathedral hands. The dial has applied markers in a different style without the numbers compared to the SCVF017, and it also had the red text and the Cyclops window, which are not present on the newer models. On the wrist it sits perfectly and the proportions look great. It feels really slim as well. An issue with many modern Seikos is the case thickness being on the larger side, and this is not the case with the Red Alpinist. And I don't see many downsides with this model compared to the newer version, except maybe that this one is harder to get and perhaps a bit more difficult to service. And I would personally choose this one before the 017 every day, and if I want a green dial, you can look for the 009. Unfortunately, that one is a bit rarer still. Both the SCVF017 and the Red Alpinist can be had with the stainless steel bracelet. I would say that the bracelet is decent on both watches, and definitely a bonus if you can find an example with them included, as it's always nice to have the original bracelet. But I personally have put my Red Alpinist on a Horveen leather strap. I think this watch looks great on a leather strap. The Red Alpinist is a very special and rare watch that has a lot of charm and history. It has all the features that made the SCVF017 great and famous, but in a smaller and slimmer package. The size is perfect for this type of watch, and while I love the SCVF017, I thought it was perhaps a bit too large and thick, and the 6R15 was never my favorite movement. The 4S15 is a definite upgrade in my opinion. The black Red Alpinist can still be had for under $1,000, which is a lot of value for money and not that much more expensive compared to the newer models. And it's one of my favorite Seikos, if not one of my favorite watches overall. And if you can find one in good condition, you should definitely pick one up. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something new and interesting about the not so well known Red Alpinist. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more watch reviews. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye.